friends still live at home with...
Jeremy, what are you watching?
It's the latest trend, 16 and pregnant.
Well, back in my day, people weren't so irresponsible and immoral as they are nowadays.
Actually, remember that book that we had to read in college English?
Yeah, I mean, all that I remember about college English was RK's story about that guy that got ran over 3 times in 1 year and still lived.
Well, I'll give you a refresher. The book was called Measure for Measure.
Ah, that rings a bell.
And it was written by William Shakespeare.
Well, who was that?
Well, buckle up and get ready for a knowledge dump. As far as we know, Shakespeare was born in the year 1564 in the United Kingdom in a small town, Stratford-on-Avon. He was born to John Shakespeare, who was a leather worker who made gloves, and Mary Arden.
Mary Arden was a member of a very prominent family, and he was the oldest of their surviving children. His parents' first 2 children died, and they were both girls.
Neither of his parents were able to read or write. For this reason, his mother's signature was a picture of a horse, and his father's signature was a picture of a compass.
Now for schooling, he went to Stratford Grammar School.
After this, little is known from 1578 to 1582 before he married his wife.
And these were known as his first lost years. His wife was Anne Hathaway from the region of Shottery, who he married in 1582 while she was pregnant with Susanna, her first child.
Anne was 8 years older than William, who was 18 years old at the time that they married.
After they married, they lived in Stratford. Then in 1885, they had a pair of twins named Hammett and Judith. During this time, Shakespeare worked in London while the rest of his family stayed in his hometown.
Modern historians have not been able to pin down exactly what Shakespeare did from the period of 1585 to 1592, also known as the Lost Years.
Now, these speculations range from being a school teacher to a member of an acting troupe, more outrageously, fleeing Stratford due to him poaching deer from an estate.
Whatever happened in that 7-year period concludes with William Shakespeare beginning his acting career.
His first plays were believed to be written before or about the year of 1592 and included Titus Andronicus as a tragedy, Comedy of Errors, The Taming of the Shrew, and The 2 Gentlemen of Verona as the comedies. Finally, the Henry VI trilogy and Richard III were published as well.
Alongside the plays, Shakespeare penned the narrative poem Venus and Adonis. This highly sexual poem was dedicated to Earl of Southampton, Henry Worthesley.
This was also published at a time when the theaters in London were closed due to an outbreak of the plague.
He also made a second poem called The Rape of Lucre.
With many reprints of both these poems, Shakespeare became fairly popular for poetry.
At this time, William Shakespeare was part of a variety of an acting troupe, but eventually he settled down in 1594 with the Lord Chamberlain's Men.
Eventually, this troupe was to be renamed to the King's Men after King James I became its sponsor. Then in 1599, after rising through the ranks of the troupe, William Shakespeare and then some other members built the Globe Theatre.
After 1595, William Shakespeare published Romeo and Juliet, King Lear, The Tempest, and Macbeth. The inspiration for one of those plays' names is thought to have some from his family's members.
His only son, Hamnet, died at the age of 11 and was thought to have been Shakespeare's inspiration for the play Hamlet.
These plays contain structures of playwriting dating back to the time of ancient Greece, such as conflicts inside one's person and various characters with torturous minds.
Other plays including Measure for Measure, All's Well That Ends Well, and Troilus and Crescenda play with convoluted morality, thus blurring the line between comedy and tragedy.
Susanna married a Stratford doctor, then eventually had Elizabeth Barnard, the Shakespeare's first grandchild, in 1608.
Then in 1609, Shakespeare's set of sonnets and poems, with these poems covering the themes from love to truth, were published.
Shakespeare then retired from playmaking in 1612.
Judith eventually married a wine cellar just before Shakespeare died in 1616.
Eventually, the whole family died out, leaving no direct lineage from Shakespeare's present.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the title, but what was the book about?
The play Measure for Measure was first performed on the 26th of December 1604 at the court of King James I. Its first print formed appearing in the first folio in 1623.
It is believed to be based on an incident that happened in Milan, Italy in 1547. A wife was forced to have sex with a judge in order to save her husband's life. Eventually the husband was executed, but then the judge was then forced to marry the wife and was then executed as well. In this play, there are about 5 main characters that you would need to know. These are Claudio, Lucio, the Duke, otherwise known as Friar Lodowick in disguise, Angelo, and Isabella.
Isabella is a sister in the church and a sister of Claudio, and Claudio is the one who is accused of getting an unwed woman pregnant and is interested in saving himself from execution.
The Duke is the leader in Vienna and was originally concerned about the morality in the city, so he hands his power to Angelo, who is a deputy of the Duke, and is concerned about upholding the rule of law.
Lucio is one of Claudio's friends and is one of the first people to hear of Claudio's predicament.
The story is set in Vienna, and in the first part the Duke gives up his throne to Angelo. This was due to the Duke longing for someone that would be hard on immoral actions and uphold the law.
The Duke refuses an escort by Angelo out of the city, and then the story transitions to a brothel.
A man named Lucio hears from the brothel owner that his friend Claudio has been arrested for getting his girlfriend, Juliet, pregnant. Lucio then hears that Claudio is to be executed in 3 days upon the orders of Angelo. Then Lucio and his two friends leave to find out what really happened.
Claudio, guarded, is then asked by Lucio about his punishment and arrest. Claudio then asks Lucio to ask Claudio's sister Isabella to persuade Angelo.
The story then shifts to a monastery, where the Duke is being disguised as the friar. The Duke explains that he selected Angelo because it would seem odd that the Duke would suddenly become strict, yet he does not trust Angelo and wishes to go among his subjects to see the rule of Angelo.
Isabella is then told by Lucio about the status of her brother, and is convinced to plead for clemency for Claudio.
Angelo is then told by one of his advisors to be merciful with Claudio, but then Angelo proceeds to set the date of execution to be the next morning.
Isabel, with Lucio at her side, attempts to persuade Angelo to let Claudio live. It fails, but Angelo says to meet her on the following day.
The setting is then switched to a prison where the Duke arrives to offer spiritual counseling to the prisoners. Juliet is then questioned about the righting of her sins committed with Claudio.
The following part is an acting of a short part of Act 2, Scene 4.
How now, fair maiden?
I shall come to know your pleasure.
That you would know it would much better please me than to demand what is. Your brother cannot live.
Heaven's soul, keep your honor.
Yet he may live a while, and it may be as long as you or I, yet he must still die.
Under your sentence?
Yea.
When, I beseech you, though in his reprieve, whether it be long or short, may his soul sicken not.
Ha! Find these filthy vices. It were as good to pardon him that hath from nature stolen, a man already made, as to admit their saucy sweetness, that do coin image in stamps that are forbid. 'Tis all as easy to make a false one.
'Tis said heaven, but not on earth.
Say you so? Then I shall pose to you quickly, which had you rather, that the most just law now took your brother, or else to redeem him? Give up your body to the sweet uncleanness, as she that he hath stained.
Sir, believe this, I'd rather give my body than my soul.
Thus wisdom wishes to appear most bright when it doth tax itself, as these black masks proclaim and shield beauty 10 times louder than beauty could displayed. But mark me, to be received plain, I'll speak more gross. Your brother is to die.
So,
And his offence is so, as it appears accounted to the law upon that plain.
true.
Admit no other way to save his life, as I subscribe, not that, nor any other, but in the loss of question that you, his sister, finding yourself desired of such a person, whose credit with the judge, or own great place, could fetch your brother from the manacles of all binding law, and that there were no earthly mean to save him, but that either you must lay down the treasures of your body to this suppose, or else to let him suffer, what would you do?
As much for my poor brother as to myself. That is, were I under the terms of death, the impressions of keen whips I'd wear as rubies, and strip myself to death as to a bed. That longing have been sick for, ere I yield my body up to shame.
Well, then must your brother die?
And 'twere be the cheaper way, better than a brother to die at once, than a sister redeeming him, shall die forever.
Were you not then as cruel as the law that you have slandered?
Ignominy and ransom and free pardon are of 2 houses. Lawful mercy is not kin foul to redemption.
You seemed of late to make the law a tyrant, and rather you approved the sliding of your brother a merriment than a vice.
Oh, pardon me, my lord, it oft fall out. To have what we would have, we speak not what we mean. I something do excuse the things that I hate, for his advantage I love so dearly.
We are all frail.
Else let my brother die, if not a fidere, let he own thy succeed weakness.
Nay, women are frail too.
I have no tongue but one. Gentle, my lord, let you not speak thy former language.
Plainly conceive I love you.
My brother did love Juliet, and you tell him that he shall die for it?
You shall not, Isabel, if you give me love.
I know your virtue hath a license, in which seems a little follier than it is to pluck on others.
Believe me, on mine honor, my words do express my purpose.
Now, this part was chosen as it reveals the corrupt nature of Angelo and how power can be abused for one's nefarious desires.
This is also the part where a moral decision takes place. Should Isabel forfeit her virginity and save her brother, or shall Isabel keep her virginity and be haunted by her brother's death, knowing fully well that she could have saved him?
In Act 3, the Duke comforts Claudio, and then prepares him for his execution. The Duke then leaves, and then Isabel tells Claudio what happened between her and Angelo.
Claudio thinks that Isabel should give in to Angelo's demands. Isabel then leaves angry that her brother suggests the idea of giving in to Angelo.
The Duke, overhearing the conversation, tells Claudio that the execution will be carried out. He then tells Isabel that he has a plan to save Claudio.
The plan is to have Angelo's lover, Marina, sleep with Angelo in place of Isabel. Marina was supposed to be married to Claudio, but was not when her dowry was lost in the sea.
Lucio, after seeing the Duke outside of the prison, proceeds to then tell the Duke about all the scandalous things that the Duke supposedly did. A guard then comes carrying the mistress Overdone, the brothel owner.
The mistress claims that Lucio impregnated her and has refused to marry her. After she is taken away, the guard, Aeschylus, asks the nature of the friar's business. The Duke says that he is an unofficial church business.
The friar then asks about the Duke, and hears nothing but praise, which pleases him very much.
In Act 4, the story begins with the Duke and Isabella meeting at Marina's house to discuss the plan. Isabel tells Marina about the plan to have a surrogate bed partner, and Marina agrees.
Angelo then sleeps with Mariani, and the plan is then completed.
Claudio is then told in prison that he is to die on the following morning. The Duke, expecting Claudio to be free, hears that Claudio is to be executed, and next morning, alongside a murderer, which worries the Duke.
The Duke then convinces the Provost, the warden, to spare Claudio and then send the head of the murderer instead.
The murderer, Bernardine, is not ready to die and refuses to be executed, despite the efforts of the Duke to make him accept his fate.
The Provost then hatches another idea. One of the other executed prisoners' head is almost exactly the same shape and complexion as Claudio's, and the Provost then suggests to send both Claudio and Bernardine to be hidden and the severed head to be sent to Angelo.
When Isabel arrives, the Duke tells her that the execution is planned to be carried out, and then to get her revenge, she is to stand outside the gates of the city with Angelo and wait for the Duke to return.
The Duke then sends 2 letters to Aeschylus and Angelo, telling that they and any wronged people should meet outside of the city gates for his arrival.
The Duke then gives some letters to Friar Pete, and then leaves for a mission trip with some other people. Marina and Isabella then are greeted by Friar Peter and go to the gates to accuse Angelo.
Isabella accuses Angelo of forcing her to sleep with him, but then Mariana says that he actually slept with her.
Mariana, Isabel, and Friar Peter are accused of being persuaded by Friar Ludwig, which is the name of the Duke as the friar. He then leaves the decision to Angelo, and then exits.
The Duke, being disguised as the friar, is then accused of slander by Lucio, and then the Duke takes off his hood and shows his true identity.
The Duke then sentences Angelo to marry Mariana and then to death. Then Mariana and Isabel argue for the salvation of Angelo, and Mariana is not becoming a widow.
While the Duke does not appear to give in to the two's demands, the jailer then brings Bernardine and Claudio and then unmasks Claudio.
Angelo and Claudio are both pardoned of their crimes.
The Duke then threatens Lucio with a whipping and a hanging for his slander, but then sentences Lucio to marry the prostitute that he impregnated.
The act ends with the Duke asking Isabel to marry him.
One theme that is present is the theme of deception and trickery. Deception is used to free Claudio. Examples of this include the bed trick where Mariana is swapped in place of Isabella, the Duke disguising himself as a friar to spy on his people, and the usage of a dead pirate's head in place of Claudio's.
One theme is that of morality. The way that the mistress describes how the new laws will take away from most of her business and how the penalty of death is given for premarital sex shows how various people view death.
Crime and punishment is also covered by the juxtaposition of a corrupt man punishing a man who committed a morality crime and then asks if conformity to social norms can be made throughout the passing of laws.
Sex is also a central theme and is the reason why Claudio is arrested in the first place. The scene with the brothel shows how commonplace sex in Vienna is at the time. The passage of the laws that prohibit premarital sex is also evidence of sex being a central theme in Measure for Measure.
This play is definitely one of Shakespeare's darker plays.
The included deception and coercion in order to achieve sexual advances makes this play a no-go for the youngsters.
The play accentuates the extent to which people would go to in order to achieve whatever they would like.
An online newspaper article, published by The Guardian, briefly describes their thoughts on the play Measure for Measure, and I quote, "Sometimes described as profound, but more or less always called broken-backed. It isn't without much conviction experienced as a comedy, Dante-esque or not. Above all, in the loss of its critical agreement of a sense of what is flawed, the work seems to strike readers as an audience as strange and even bewildering."
Compared to other plays by Shakespeare, such as Macbeth or Romeo and Juliet, this play is slower paced but still has many plot twists. This book is also darker compared to Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet.